Morning, everybody. Morning. Hi, thank you all for being here. My name is Jude Missick. I'm the 6th grade counselor, so the rising 7th grade counselor here at Harper Park. And this is Ms. Hittrick, the 7th grade counselor, the rising 8th grade counselor at Harper Park. And there's Mrs. Harper, our lead counselor at Harper Park. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to be here today, to come in for the parent coffee. I'm sure you all know, I see some familiar faces. We do these once a month with different topics, and so this month's topic, as you all know, is the course selection process. It's pretty simple in some ways, but then there's also some big decisions to make for your children. So whether you have a current 6th grader or a current 7th grader, there's going to be some different options. So we're going to start off by me kind of saying a couple broad basic things about the course selection process, and then I'll dive into the current 6th grade, therefore rising 7th grade options, and kind of what the schedule will entail next year for 7th graders. And then Ms. Hittrick will dive into the current 7th graders, therefore rising 8th graders options for next year. And of course, at any point, ask questions. And after today, of course, if you need anything, please contact one of us via phone or email, and we can help you out. Okay? All right. So, like I said, this is kind of the course selection process parent coffee. And some basic information, we take teacher recommendations for classes, for certain classes. At our school and at most middle schools in the county, as you can see, for English, history, and science, it's going to be the grade 7 English or grade 8 English, depending on what grade your child is in, and are going to be in next year. There is no necessarily difference between the two as far as everybody's going to be in the honors level for English, science, and history. And for math, it follows a progression, so whatever math your child currently is in, that's where the recommendations really heavily come in. Health PE 7 or Health PE 8, depending on your child's grade. And then any child who's currently in 7th grade heading to 8th grade, there's going to be a recommendation from that teacher whether or not they should go on to that next level of that language, or whether or not they need to repeat that year of the world language. And those recommendations happened already, so you can see them in parent view and see them in student view under the course request tab, and for that next year. And so it's good information to have for right now. Certainly talk to your child and then talk to the teacher should you have any questions about that recommendation. And then Tech Ed and Facts for current 6th graders, they're going to take that next year. 6th graders this year have computers and art for half year each, and next year it's going to be Facts and Tech Ed for half year each. You see at the bottom, resource or spectrum will be mass added by the counselor later on, but those are going to be part of the schedule for the current 6th graders. The rising 7th graders, it's still going to be a half a period of resource or spectrum. And for the 7th graders in 8th grade, they're going to have a full block of resource, or a half period spectrum and a half period of resource, kind of depending on what their setup is for that. And then for students receiving special education services, Mrs. Harper, our lead counselor, assists all students who have special education services. And those students, a lot of their courses are going to be dictated by what the IEP team decides. So as far as 7th grade required courses, so English, life science, history, those are the three. Again, no recommendations needed. They're all going to be in those 3 classes. Math, if your student is a 6th grader in Math 6, then it would likely be Foundations of Algebra that they would be put into next year, which is kind of the grade level math. If a student is currently in Foundations of Algebra, which is kind of a more accelerated classes like a 7th grade math that a 6th grader is taking, they will either be recommended to go to pre-algebra, which is kind of the 8th grade level math, or Algebra 1, depending on what they've shown so far. Again, definitely speak to your student, your child, about their math class, how it's going. You can see the grades, but what's behind it, certainly reach out to the teacher if you see the recommendation and you think it's too accelerated. My child's not going to be ready for Algebra 1, or you think, why are they recommended for pre-algebra? You feel like you want them to be recommended for the higher level class. The teachers obviously have seen more than half a year's worth of work now from your students, so they would have a really good kind of input on what they think is the best course. And they've already inputted in there, but again, have discussions with teachers and your student if needed. Coffee 7, again, Tech Ed and Fax are going to be one semester each. And then the choices that our current 6th graders have next year are a half block fine arts elective, and then a full credit, full block additional elective, again with the half period of resource and spectrum that we're going to pair up with that fine arts class. Any questions about any of that so far? Yes?
Maybe it's a stupid question. What is a half block and what is a full block?
So yeah, we're on a block schedule, right? So we have 4 blocks every day. A block is a period of time that's usually about an hour and a half. So a full block would mean you have that one class every other day for that full period, of the 4 periods a day, right? And then so the resource and spectrum right now currently for 6th graders and in 7th is going to be just that half block, and usually you pair it up with then a fine arts elective, so a music or an art class. So that's a good question. There are no bad questions. Did I explain it? Good? Okay. So what are Fax and Tech Ed? Again, if you have a current 7th grade child, they're taking Fax and Tech Ed first and second half of the year, kind of depending on the order. Depends on their schedule as far as the order. And any 6th graders, they're going to take Fax and Tech Ed next year. And they're both hands-on classes. They're both kind of project-based, as you can see here. Family Consumer Science, for those of us like me, I took Home Economics, all right? The name and the class has changed quite a bit since I think I sewed a pillow, a light bulb pillow, by the way. It was excellent. I kept it for a long time, probably too long. But they went from sewing pillows to much more. Obviously, personal finance, textiles and fashion, career exploration, child development, family resources, nutrition and wellness. Lots of good information is covered in there. And then Tech Ed is, a lot of good information about designing and building things, and so kind of more like an engineering type of a class. It's good to expose the students to all of these different disciplines to maybe inspire them to pursue a career in it, or just gain some skills in both of those areas. And so that is why we then have them do both a half a year, which would be one semester each, of Family Consumer Sciences and Tech Ed. So a 7th grade elective options, so the half period, right, the half block class is going to be one of these. So it's going to be a fine arts elective. So that would be a music class or an art class. So it says all 7th graders will have 45 minutes of resource or spectrum, and the other half of that period, every other day, will be either band 7, string 7, chorus 7, or guitar 7. For band and strings, you must be currently in the 6th grade level of it. I did have a couple kids already ask me, can I switch instruments within band? Obviously that's something they can ask their band teacher about, and it should be workable, especially if they've been in band all year, obviously, so far. There are some students who want to switch from band to strings or vice versa. That's a little bit more difficult to do, but if there's prior experience, there might be exceptions that can be made, but again, we kind of definitely involve the music teachers for that. Chorus, a student can jump into chorus next year, even if they don't have any prior experience. Guitar, you have to be in Music Lab 6 this year. Oh.
That's actually not accurate anymore.
Okay.
They're not doing guitar in Music Lab as they had been, so any student can take guitar 7 next year.
My mistake. I think I added that in there accidentally for my.
I think there was some
Okay.
confusion
We
about
used to do
that.
that.
There was some debating on whether or not that was going to be an expectation, but now we've decided that it's just, you can take guitar if you want.
Excellent.
Yeehaw.
Excellent. Thank you both for that. And then Art 7. If your child's a 6th grader and they're just starting art this semester, they might start to get really excited about it and be like, all right, I liked music, but now I want to do art. Or if they had the first half of the year, they might know if they like it or not, and they want to pursue that for 7th grade. So those are all the half block, half period options. And then the full period options, this is where it gets a little bit tricky, and this is where if you have a 6th grader, we got to start really thinking about the future. It doesn't, get you on one path and you're stuck on it. Good morning. Thank you guys for coming in. But it's something to consider. So this is the big decision. So these are full block electives. So your child can do communication studies, which is like an English elective. Works on your English skills, reading, writing, and journalism. Intro to Computer Science and Computer Science Foundations are like coding classes. And if your child has no experience prior, knowledge of coding, then the intro class would be the one to take. That's kind of the beginner one, the first one, and then Computer Science Foundations would be then the one they could take in 8th grade maybe. And then there's also world language. This is where a lot of students will take a world language. As you can see, the options are listed there. These are all high school credited classes. So that means their high school career is kind of starting with that. What's that?
Not
None
the
of them
first
are.
three,
It's just the world language.
just world language.
I'm sorry, I said
Yeah.
world language saying these are all, meaning,
I thought you
meaning-
meant the whole.
I apologize, I'll be more specific. So these are high school accredited classes, all meaning all these world languages. Yeah. So all Spanish, German, Latin, and French are all high school accredited classes. So that means their high school GPA starts, that means their high school credits start. The good thing about taking a high school class in middle school is you can expunge it or wipe it out. Okay, so let's say you have a sixth grader and they think they want to take German 1 next year and start their high school career and start a world language. And they think they're ready for it. And they jump into there and they do okay, they really enjoy the language, but they end up getting a C+. And it's not the grade they kind of envision, and they don't know if they're really ready for German 2 in 8th grade, but they know they like the language. They're like, I love the class, I love the language and the culture that I'm learning about. We can say, all right, let's wipe out that grade. You can fill out a form online, it's pretty easy, and then it acts as if that class was never taken, and then they can go to German 1 again that next year in 8th grade, and then get that grade, whatever they earn in there, that's their new grade in there. So
They've already
if
had the exposure for it.
exactly, yep, they've already had the exposure for years. So then that knowledge that they have will help them likely almost always get a much higher grade and have a much better experience in it that next year. That's why I always encourage the 6th grade parents, if those of you who have 6th grade parents, if you feel like your child's ready, definitely jump into that. Not that these are not good courses, but especially like coding, if they're like, I really want to do computer science, there are definitely options in 8th grade to take coding, but then also in high school as well.
Or
If
clubs.
Right, clubs as well. If we jump ahead to your child in high school, they do need to take 3 years of a language in order to satisfy the world language requirement for the advanced studies diploma.
Or two years of Sorry.
Thank you. Or 2 years each of 2 different languages, right? So 3 years of one, so that'd be Spanish 1, 2, and 3, or let's say French 1 and 2, and then Latin 1 and 2. So those are the kind of requirements. So not that, again, your child has to take a world language in 7th grade or even 8th grade. A child could start in 9th grade. But I just know that once they get to maybe sophomore, junior year in high school, they're going to be like, oh, I really wish I would have started that language earlier because there's so many other cool electives I want to take. Or I wish I would have started it earlier so I could get to the really high levels of the language. For example, if a student takes French 1 in 7th grade, then they take French 2 in 8th, that means then they could get up to AP level French, which is like the year 6 of that language. So they would do French 3, 4, 5, and AP, which is 6 in high school. AP is college level and earns college credit. Obviously, if the student enjoys it and does really well in that class, that's the most important part, but the really cool part is they can get that college credit, and I know I'm talking to students, parents who have students who are in 6th and 7th grade, but colleges do like to see students, if they can excel in a language, that shows a lot of ability and dedication because it's not easy, obviously, to learn another language, and to take that high of a level is pretty impressive. So again, something to consider if your child is kind of really motivated and really kind of picks things up quickly and wants to do it, start that world language in 7th grade. If you're sitting here as the parent of a 7th grader and they're heading into 8th grade and they haven't taken a language, unless there's some educational kind of needs that dictate otherwise and you feel like they really kind of need to wait on the language, which is totally fine, I would say try it in 8th grade because again, that expunge process is there to help middle schoolers, because we know it's not easy taking a high school level class as a 7th or 8th grader. That's again why the expungement exists, so we can say, okay, that was a gimme or a redo, all right, let's kind of redo it that next year and wipe that out. There does exist a situation where, let's say a student takes German in 7th grade, they didn't really like it, they expunge it, they want to take Latin in 8th, they can do that, but they just want to have that prior knowledge, like Ms. Hickman mentioned. So, okay. Any questions about that? There's a lot of caveats to that, but yeah.
So I had heard that the Scratch was the main thing that you needed to know to go into computer science foundations rather than intro. Is that accurate?
Let me look. There's a slide that kind of breaks it down a little bit further. Yeah. So communication studies, just to kind of show you guys a little bit more about it. I know they do presentations, and as Ms. Citrick mentioned, journalism part, so newspaper, yearbook, literary magazine.
They do a little bit of like speeches and stuff too.
Yeah. Lots of info on here. Is this going to be on our website?
I
Ms. Harper?
basically explain all
Yeah.
of this, so
Yeah. So So yeah, I didn't mention the dual enrollment part, so AP or dual enrollment. Those of you with high school students might know a little bit about dual enrollment. Another way to earn college credit, kind of different from AP. There's no test involved. They just automatically earn the credit. In levels 4 and 5, you see at the bottom are honors levels, so they get a bump in their GPA. And again, if you're looking to have your child look more impressive to colleges, taking higher level of any class, but especially a language because it's difficult, means maybe starting in middle school might be the way to do it. I always like to say as well, one more thing about world languages is like, if they take a language and they're like, ooh, that was not it. Like I spent a year in Spanish and it's just not for me. At least they know they can rule one out. Because then what if you go into 9th grade starting a language and you're a brand new language and you've never taken one, you really can't switch to a new language after maybe the first few days of the class because you will have missed so much in that other class that you might try to switch into. Same goes for middle school. We can't really switch you into a new class very easily, especially for world languages. So computer science, let's see.
Sorry,
Yes.
can you go back to the previous
Yes.
slide? So over the summer, can be taken online, is that?
Yes, certainly it is available in the summer. My opinion is if we can avoid that at all possible, that would probably be advisable because even though a lot of these kids obviously are used to online learning, and if your child did well in online learning a couple years ago, maybe they'd be able to do that. Sometimes a student who gets into the Academies of Loudon or a specific program where then they have to try to take a world language or some other class online over the summer, that might be kind of more necessary or needed. But if it's just to do it over the summer to free up a spot in their schedule, they can do it. But learning a language online without any real direct instruction, because that's what the online, the virtual Loudon class would be, it's pretty challenging. So I would worry about a student trying to do that and then go to that next year of that language, and if they would maybe not get as much out of it as we'd want them to get in a full year of that class in the classroom. So, but that is an option. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. And Mrs. Dare, did you see anything on here that you were looking for? Scratch. It says scratch on the left. So yeah,
Yeah.
intro to computer
They've
science.
learned that in intro, so it would be helpful to know in foundations, but like it says with the asterisk, there's no prerequisite per se. You just might have an easier time.
And we can have him talk to Mr. Stevens as well to kind of get a feel. Mr. Stevens will be able to ask questions. For computer science, Mr. Stevens teaches it. He'll be able to tell if a student can say, hey, I know this, I know Scratch already, and Mr. Stevens might be like, oh, you're a better fit for computer science foundations. And rising 8th grade.
That's me. Okay, so all the same core classes, and that would be recommendations from their current teachers in their student view. They should already be viewable. World languages, the same thing. There will be recommendations to either have them repeat the world language that they took this year, next year, or they will go ahead and get the recommendation to advance into the second year. So I went into resource classes last week, I think, or maybe the week before, I don't know, to go ahead and show them how to do their course selection. It's very similar to the way that they had done it the year previous. And so I did tell them that the window has opened already and that they can go in and make their choices until March 3rd. I told them that they can make them right now, but they should probably wait and talk to their parents first because they might not agree with the choices that they want to take. So they might come and talk to you, or maybe they already went in and did it and maybe you want to double check it. But yeah, so that window is open until March 3rd. Academic and career plan, we're going to make that soon. I haven't gotten to that point yet because we are doing something different this year with our rising 8th graders. We are meeting with them one-on-one to talk about their future career paths. So that way I can get more individualized time with them, and it just is, it's a little bit more personal. Right, so student view and March 3rd. Typical 8th grade courses. For 8th graders, we have all of the same core classes and a full block of resource. If your student has Spectrum, they would have half resource and half Spectrum. So this is the first year that they would absolutely get both. And I think that is super helpful for those Spectrum kids too, because they are taking on a heavier load of work. So there are 2 electives that they can take in 8th grade in addition to that full block of resource. So you can take a world language and a fine art. You can take one of the computer science classes and your world language classes. So there's a lot of different options and a lot more flexibility with the 8th grader schedule for them to pursue their interests and get to know different themes that they like, different skills that they might be interested in having. Yes, so the math will follow a progression. Students currently in Foundations of Algebra will go to Pre-Algebra or Algebra 1. Then the students currently in Pre-Algebra will go to Algebra 1 and, wait, did that just repeat itself? Students currently in Algebra 1 will go to Geometry. And some students may even be in Algebra 2 with Trigonometry.
Question. Algebra 1, is that also a high school credit?
Yes. Yes. And Algebra 1 can also be expunged as well. So any high school credit courses taken as a middle school student can be expunged and then retaken the next year. Sometimes that's even better in a lot of cases if they ended up in an Algebra 1 course. They want to really make sure that they got a good solid foundation of that algebra class since it's such a buildable foundational course. It could be advantageous that way. But yeah, so here's the long list of 8th grade elective options. We've got FACS, Technology of Robotic Design, which is another high school credit course, but we have a whole slide on that, so I'll explain that soon. Tech Ed 8, Exploratory Dramatics, Art 8, Intro to Computer Science Foundations. Those are the same classes that you can take as 7th grade. They are combined grade classes, and there's no prerequisites for it. Chorus 8, there's no prerequisite for that, and this is also delete. That's not there anymore. So you can actually take Guitar 8 as well, right? You don't have to have Guitar 7, right? Or is that not a thing?
I would think
There's a little
if you do Guitar
confusion.
8, probably do Guitar 7.
It would be hard to pick it up in Guitar 8 probably,
She
but
does have level 1 and level 2, but they're combined in a class.
right, okay, that makes sense. Okay, and then obviously the world languages. If you want to take your first world language ever in 8th grade, that's also an option. Or maybe you took it last year and you are taking the next level. Another option that was not available for 7th grade in our Hispanic community or Spanish-speaking community, they can take Spanish for Fluent Speakers 1, which is kind of like English class for English speakers. This would be Spanish class for Spanish speakers. And that's also a high school credit. So, Technology of Robotic Design is an 8th grade course, so 7th graders can't take it. It is a high school credit course. It factors into their high school GPA. It is a little bit more intense when it comes to coursework. It does require some like problem solving, creative problem solving, and technology skills. There will not be a lot of room in this class, so if it is like super popular, there will be a lottery where we will just draw names to figure out who's going to be in the class. But yeah, students engage in the study of computers and microprocessors and their applications to manufacturing, transportation, communication systems. Problem-solving activities challenge the students to design, program, and interface devices with computer systems. If you guys have heard all of the rave things about the ChatGPT and the AI stuff, this is kind of like up that alley right there. So if you're trying to get your kid ahead of the game and maybe into a lucrative career in the future, this could be it.
I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention before. Is there a prerequisite for robotic design?
No.
Okay.
They can just sign up for it, but maybe they would like to have a good interest in like tech ed, basically. Exploratory dramatics. So we all know that teenagers are very dramatic, so this would be a great outlet for them. But yeah, so it's a fun class. Kids really seem to enjoy that. It gives them space to be creative and study drama, basically. Through research planning, scripting, production, and performance experiences. They'll do skits. They build different things for the plays that they put on, different sets. But yeah, it helps them get ready for high school drama if they're going to be interested in that as well, in bigger productions. But they usually help put on the drama club's production and learn a lot about that topic as well. High school credit bearing courses. This is just another summary of which ones actually earn a credit. Robotics, Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, and Trigonometry, and all of the world language courses are high school credit bearing courses. These courses are fast-paced and require extra time and effort outside of the school in order to be successful. Like Mr. Missick said, it's not the perfect choice for every kid in every situation. Sometimes it's more advantageous for them to wait later on whenever they are ready to take on a higher, more intensive course load so that they can absorb more information. Like if they are struggling to pass their grade level classes right now because of the workload, then maybe we want to get them some more of those skills right now so that they can be more successful later on and actually keep up with the material a little bit better later on. So not to overload them right now. So GPA, this is how it's kind of broken down. So when you are looking into, picking courses later on, you're gonna want to consider how that might impact the GPA overall when you get to high school. All classes when you get to high school are factored into the GPA, and starting in middle school, even though you can expunge things, that will, if you expunge it, it won't impact the GPA. But if you don't expunge it, it will be factored into your overall GPA. So you could hypothetically walk into high school with a GPA already started. But yeah, so they're averaged together. That's the breakdown right there. That'll be on the website for your perusal. And this is the Advanced Studies Diploma requirements. Yeah, so there's the list of the SOL credits over there as well. So they'll take a total of 5 SOLs, 2 English SOLs, a social studies, math, science. But yeah, do we have any questions about the Advanced Studies Diploma?
I have a question. Is it really necessary? I mean, I feel like if this is the basis of what you guys are doing, then why would you have anything different? I mean,
Right, you're asking if there's like a basic level diploma?
Yeah.
Yeah, there is.
There's a standard diploma.
I mean, what's the benefit?
So colleges don't, when they're looking at for admissions, when they're looking at students who are good candidates, they don't know if the student's going to earn a standard or advanced technically, because that is not awarded until after graduation technically. But they can see the main differences between an advanced diploma and a standard diploma, which most kids get an advanced, probably like 85, 90% get advanced, right? Is the main difference is the world language, and most colleges require 3 years of world language or 2 years each of 2 different languages. There are some that don't, but vast majority do. So that's the big difference. I mean, there are caveats, there are exceptions. I did have, when I was high school counselor, I did have a student who got into and went to Virginia Tech who had a standard diploma because they only had 3 sciences instead of 4 because they transferred and couldn't get a science in. So Virginia Tech didn't ultimately care if they got an advanced versus a standard, but that kid had, I think, 5 years of a world language. Everything else was advanced studies diploma level, and he was a really qualified, awesome candidate, great grades, but he just happened to not be able to get that 4th year of science for some reason, right, for the unique reason. That's why if you ever look at college websites for admissions, they're going to say we want them to at least have 3 years of history and science and math because they know there's these unique things. But to be the most qualified candidate, we try to have students take the advanced studies diploma route. And if they end up getting a standard, they still can get into college, just maybe won't be as much of a qualified candidate.
It just might be a little bit more complicated and maybe unnecessary
The only reason
stress.
I ask is that my daughter's in German 1, even though she's doing great, she doesn't know if she wants to take German 2.
Right.
Because she's like, it's a little stressful.
Yeah.
She doesn't have to. It wouldn't quite meet, it would kind of be like, well, either I take another year and get that one satisfied requirement, or I pretend like this year didn't happen, but I take the credit as mostly an elective.
Yeah. So, I don't know. She's not sure.
I hear
Yeah,
you.
that's why we're talking about it so
But
early.
she's doing, that's crazy thing is she's doing great,
Yeah.
and then even her teacher's saying that she's like one of her best German 1 students, but she's just like, I don't know.
Well, and this is why we're talking about it so early, because right now she might not think it, but in a couple months she might be like, actually I'm ready, I can handle it,
Yeah.
But if by the end of the year she's like, I really don't know if I can, then there's
Or she wants to
other
push
options.
through it because it's more worth it to her to bear it and get that satisfied credit out of the way, and then
Yeah.
she can move on and do something different when she gets to Heritage.
Yeah.
If she's doing well, then taking that bump in the GPA would be beneficial.
Right.
She can switch languages next year.
Right.
She could go into high school with
She's
4.0.
I know,
That's
she's
true.
silly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you all know, and you might not know, how far you can go in math in the Heritage Building without having to go elsewhere? Like,
Good question.
Past
I am not
calculus
100% sure. Ms. Harper might be able to look it up for you.
It usually is multivariable calculus,
Yeah.
which is after AP Calculus BC, which is the second half of calculus. For those of you who, I mean, it kind of changes all the time, so we'd have to look up specifically, and I can get back to you about that. But it's usually what, Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, with Trey Gifford talked about a super accelerated kid, and then pre-calculus, or they skip that, go to Math Analysis, which leads to AP Calc BC, which skips over AB. Sorry, I'm kind of like just skipping ahead. Then after BC, they can do multivariable, which is usually offered at Heritage. And then for our kids who get to multivariable before senior year, they can do vector calculus, usually at Nova, which is even more advanced, and I think it's like a 5
He
credit
used to work at a
college
high
class,
school, that's why
so,
he knows all of this.
But so it changes, and yeah, it depends on if there's a teacher in that building that can teach it. So we had situations in high school once where a kid wanted to take, I think it was multivariable, but they had to get on they were at that high school I worked at where they attended, and they were on a camera and listening to it online. So at another high school, I think it was Freedom High School. I don't think it's as common nowadays because I think more and more teachers are trained at the higher level. But yeah, so that route, the math route's going to be different for everybody, as you guys can tell, and kind of depends on a lot of variables. But good question. But I can get back to you with that information.
They also have the IB program starting at Heritage
Right.
now too. So the math, all the course offerings are changing at Heritage. And then they also offer the dual enrollment classes, which kids can earn a college credit and the AP version of classes too. So there's quite no limit to where they can go in that.
Too many options.
Yeah, there's lots.
well, they're getting rid of some of the AP to replace with IBs.
Right.
So when you are requesting to expunge a grade, you would just fill out a form no later than August 15th, 2023. And then that will go to me or another counselor in our counseling department, and they could expunge it that way. And then if you have, like, if this is like in the future and your rising 9th grader wants to expunge something, then that would end up going to Heritage. So now that this is over, you can go to watch the elective videos with your students and just discuss what the best course of action might be for you guys, what courses would be the most appropriate, what you want to select, and you can go into their student view with them or parent view and make those selections until March 3rd. And then if you have a question about the class specifics, I would reach out to the teacher themselves because I didn't take their classes, unfortunately. I only know so much. Talk directly with the teacher, especially like trade classes like Mr. Stevens's computer science and intro to computer science. Course selection changes can be made in student view until March 3rd. After that, changes can only be made by the counselor. All right. Any questions?
You said you were talking with them one-on-one, are you?
Yes. I have not started that yet.
Okay, so are you doing that before the selection's over, or?
If I don't, then that's no big deal either. If we need to make changes, it's easier whenever I don't have like a huge influx all at one time and then they get lost in my email chain, you know? But if I'm like sitting there right with my kid, then I can change it really easily. But changes can still be made up till the end of the year even. So if you have questions and you want to maybe make a different decision by the time the end of the year comes around, just shoot me an email and I can still make those changes for you.
Wondering what this conversation is going to be about, because my kid still thinks he's going to be a NFL player.
I know. I have a few of those. Yeah.
I know.
What if that doesn't work?
So like, because we've tried talking about other things, but like, what are these conversations going to be like that we can maybe partner with you with these conversations?
You could maybe be like, what are you going to do in the off season? Or so if your counselor is making you choose another career besides the NFL, what would you choose? And maybe that, depending on me, make me the enemy, and then you can be the good guy and be like, well, we're just trying to satisfy this requirement here.
The average NFL career lasts, what, less than 3 years, too.
Right,
So
what are you gonna do in the
after
off
those 3
season? What are you
years?
gonna do after that?
Although he probably thinks he's gonna be not only a player in the NFL, but a star in the
Exactly.
league.
Yeah, well, what if you get injured?
Yeah.
What are you gonna do after that?
You're still doing the lessons in the 7th grade class,
Right.
where they explore some of that, right?
Right, but they'll still think that they wanna be an NFL player. I had a few of those in the fall too when I did that, I'm like,
That was much.
I love your dreams.
And that reminds me, by the way, we have a career day coming up on March 22nd here at school. And so we're still kind of looking to gather more possible volunteers to come and represent your career. So if you or somebody you know would have a career that might be of interest to middle schoolers, please just send me an email. I'm the 6th grade counselor, Jude Missick, and just email me and I can send you the form. But I think I'd already sent you and all the parents and guardians an email about it, but I just wanted to put a plug into that. Another question?
Yes, what was you may have talked about this earlier, but the difference between the AP and the dual enrollment?
So AP Advanced Placement, it involves taking a test at the end of that course. And if a student gets a 3 or higher, it's out of 5 points. And if you get a 3 or 4 or 5, depending on what score the college will accept, most accept a 3, some accept only a 4 or higher, then they will be awarded 3 college credits. Whereas dual enrollment usually awards the students more credits than just the 3 college credits, 6 or more depending on what it is, especially if it's science. Lab science might be 8 credits. And there is no test at the end of that year to award you the credit. If you pass the class with 5th grade, C or higher, I think then you're awarded the credit. And it's usually through NOVA, or sometimes the class is through JMU. Depending on the class, it'll say in the program of studies, Loudoun County and these colleges work out these agreements to see what it might be. Kind of depends on the college in terms of what they would prefer to see, AP or dual enrollment, and now we have the IB, and it looks like you might know some stuff about it.
Well, no, I was going to talk about dual enrollment. We
Yeah.
can't speak highly enough of it. Our oldest got through her undergraduate in 3 years, courtesy of dual enrollment.
Yeah. And it's nice not having that AP test tied to it.
Yeah.
We used to have a lot of kids so stressed, and then they get a 2, and they'd be like crestfallen. They spent the whole year in there. They knew the material. They just didn't do well enough in tests. So dual enrollment is kind of becoming more popular. So the teachers at the school are duly certified. They're certified to teach a college and high school class. So it's like the students are enrolling in college and high school at the same time for that particular class. So.
And does that look differently when you're enrolled in dual enrollment? Like, do they have certain classes on certain days and they have like a shorter day and they go somewhere?
No, if it's like a regular class, they go. It's like a college class in a high school building, in a high school classroom with a high school teacher who's also certified to teach the college level of that. So
Cool.
good question. Yeah.
But if you're going out of state, the dual enrollment may not be negotiated that way.
Yeah,
Right.
true.
Okay.
AP is a little bit more enticing
Yes.
for that because that's kind of the college board runs that, and they run the SATs. So it's a good point. There's positives and negatives to each one. Yeah.
Are they weighted differently in their GPA?
No, they're going to be 1.0 bump for both of those. Yeah.
Okay.
So the high school, because
Is that
it's
a
a college
change?
level class.
Is that a change? I thought dual used to be half.
I don't think so.
Okay.
That maybe when it first was introduced, and I could be wrong. Maybe I'm wrong, and it is only half. But I was under the impression that all dual enrollment classes a few years ago were changed to be,
Nice.
so it's been that way for a little while. But I will double check to make sure I'm right about that. But yeah. Okay. Good questions. And if you have other questions you want to ask in front of the audience, you can. If not, you can come up to us individually. But really appreciate you guys being here. And please tell other parents of middle schoolers here at Harvard Park that we do these once a month because we want to have more participation. It's great seeing you guys in the building. So.